Greetings, metalheads. Welcome to another edition of the Friday 13th YouTube channel. If you've subscribed, thank you very much. If you haven't, please do. It's absolutely free. You've got nothing to lose. There's some great interviews on there. Old interviews from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, audio ones. There's also new ones which are all visual. So, today, you're going to be watching an interview with the mighty Saxon, Nibbs Carter. Nibbs, thanks for doing the interview. We were talking about some classic Saxon albums, and also the main reason is the new album Carpe Diem, which is released on Silver Lining Music on the 5th of February 2022. This is a fantastic album. As we all know, Saxon are a powerful, strong unit that create great music, always have, always will. It's a pleasure being friends with these guys. Thank you guys for your friendship for all these years we've known each other, 20 plus years, so thanks again. So watch the interview, enjoy folks. Be safe, stay metal, please subscribe to the channel, also please share on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever social media sites you can and groups. Thank you for watching. Like I said, Nibbs, it's a pleasure being your friend for so many years, and the rest of the guys, so be safe, all of you. I'll see you on the road. Take care, guys, and thank you to everybody who's watching this right now. Be safe, enjoy the interview. Metal's back. Right then, so we're talking to Nibbs from the mighty Saxon.
It's going fine. Going well in that we've just done two shows. We haven't been able to do them for a long time. And the two shows we just did, Manchester and London, they were rescheduled like 3 times, I think. So it was absolutely fantastic that they ended up being sold out. And, to think that people have had to buy tickets and hold on to tickets, and some people couldn't make it to these rescheduled dates. Hotels, flights from one country to another. Now we're in the COVID era. Before that, people were coming into London from all over the world to see the show, and so a lot of those people, I'm afraid, they didn't get to make it. So it's unbelievable that they still sold out. So thanks to all the fans for making that happen.
It was
and we just, like a week later, we just released a record too, as well. And so we've been really lucky. I mean, it hasn't all happened just by chance. Obviously, we've worked together with our management to reschedule the dates and reschedule the album release date so that it could hopefully coincide with being able to go out on tour. We're not touring immediately, but it gives time to prepare for ticket, people being able to buy tickets, letting them know where we're going to be. It's a bit of it's not such a hit the ground running approach this time. The record's being released, people know what to expect, and I think the first shows that we've got coming up are probably festivals through June, 4 or 5 in June, 4 or 5 in July. There's about 10, 12 festivals, maybe a few more will come in, I would imagine, now that festival promoters are a little bit more confident, and,
yeah, right, that's
ticket buyers are a lot more confident now, especially open air and summer and stuff like that. But we've got a bit of relief, we can see light at the end of the tunnel. We've got some dates planned for the UK as well.
Yeah, we know about them. Looking forward to those.
Yeah, and hopefully Europe pretty much straight after that. That's all in the planning though at the moment. And yeah, let's see.
Yeah, I'd say the fantastic show at Manchester was there, as you probably know. I went to see you at the Manchester show. That was a fantastic gig. Got some really good.
Yeah.
Got some really good photos. I don't know if you saw them. I sent them to your Facebook page.
I didn't actually see the photos.
Right. Okay. Have a look when you get chances. Got some good photos of you live, your head movements, head banging as you always do.
Yeah. There's, obviously you go out after doing very little for 2 years, and then suddenly you go out and then you get bombarded with loads of feedback and stuff. So it's absolutely fantastic to know that people are as eager to get into it as we are.
Yeah, it is, definitely. So, I'm going to ask you some warm-up questions first, Nibs. I don't think I've ever asked you this, but which bass guitarist inspired you to become a bass guitarist? And was that your first love as an instrument?
Oh, Geddy Lee, Phil Lynott, but also, they were just the ones that I would see, through my brothers and sisters, especially my brothers. What I mean is, I would see them because of the album covers and posters and stuff like that. And, I wasn't watching any videos or anything in 1977, 78 or anything when I very first started like being interested in the sound of the bass guitar was always there, with Zeppelin and Cream and funk through, pop, soul, rock. My brothers and sisters would listen to all kinds of stuff on like record players at home. And I always loved, the groove of drums and bass, but I didn't know that it was an interest of bass itself. It isn't actually. It's just groove, swing, and the sound of bass guitar and drums is just a fantastic thing. It could be a band like Chic or something like that, or Kool and the Gang, or Emerson, Lake and Palmer, or something like that, like Fanfare for the Common Man. It's just bass and drums. It just really like smacked me in the face. And then when I actually got like offered by my brothers, here, listen to this live album by Rush, All the World's a Stage, and that was like 1976, I think it was made, or something like that, or 1975. But like they gave it to me when I was like around 1979, 1980, and that made me think, oh wow. It was a gatefold album, and you had all these pictures of the band, this trio, in live photography, and really good pictures, really action-packed pictures, and that made me think, oh wow, that's what they look like when they're making that noise. And then you listen to the live album as a 13-year-old, 14-year-old, big impression. And it was around that time, 1980, when I got my first bass, and September 80, and just birthday money. You go out, and I'd seen a couple of my friends and heard a couple of my friends jamming in Cleethorpes, my primary school. And there was a school field out the back with like changing rooms and stuff like that. And a couple of my friends, Russ Brown and Sean Johnson, they were really into like just making a load of noise, but inspired by like I don't know, Dead Kennedys, Exploited, Shadows even, but like Stiff Little Fingers and Stray Cats, all kinds of stuff. And I could hear them. I was out on my sister's moped. I'd like borrowed my sister's moped, and I was out in the dark racing around in the school field, and I could hear this racket coming out of this noise coming out of the changing rooms, and I went and banged on the door, and they opened it up, and it was a couple of friends, and I didn't know they were doing that. Probably because I just started going to comprehensive school. You split from your I can't remember what it's called in English now. Grundschule. I'm living in Germany for so long now, but like you're like secondary school.
Yeah.
You're
school.
still hanging out with them. Sorry?
Junior school.
Yeah, junior school. You're still hanging out with all your junior school friends, and that's usually from your close community. And by this time, I was in the comprehensive school, and you're bumping into all kinds of new friends from loads of different areas of the region, locality, and I hadn't seen them for a while, and they were in there playing drum kit, guitar. They tried to like stick egg boxes all over the place to like make it a little bit more or less noisy for the neighbours. And my friend Russ said, give us a go on your sister's moped, and I have a go on his guitar. And he went off, and I just like was twanging around on his guitar, and it just sounded like music to me, even though it was just me hitting strings. I'd never done that before with an electric guitar. So, and yeah, I went out pretty much the next day with some birthday money, £40, which was like a really big deal for me. And I went and bought a bass guitar from Freeman Street in Grimsby. And yeah, within weeks, we were like just jamming in my mate's front room, drums, bass, and guitar, and we would just play anything. But by then, I'd really got into Rush, and I can remember the drummer Sean, he was like a couple of years older than Russ and myself, and I said to him, please go and hire this video. You know, videos were on hire at that time, and you could go out and hire a video for, I don't know, £1 or something like that. And I said, please go and hire this video. It's a band called Rush. And I'd never seen them on TV before. And it was called Exit Stage Left. And that was another live album. And it was a video of their concert. And it was from 1980. The tour, actually, the US tour, where the film was made, was actually a tour that Saxon were on, supporting them on that tour. But we forced my friend into like hiring that video, and it blew me away because it was like, you know, they'd released this album called All the World's a Stage around 76, and now it was like 4 or 5 years later, and they'd released Exit Stage Left, and it was like they looked slightly different. I don't know what the difference was, but my God, they were playing like so unbelievably well. They'd like progressed from this like super raw but finely tuned like trio from 2112, 76 to 8081. They'd like done the A Farewell to Kings album, the Hemispheres album, and then the Permanent Waves album. These were all like super intricate albums, you know, super heavy like craftsmanship, and then they brought this Moving Pictures album out, which most rockers will have heard Tom Sawyer from.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, that was it. And the sound for me on that video, coming out of Sean's TV, was like, yeah, that's it. I went out and so I don't know. Actually, I didn't go out and get Exit Stage Left straight away. First thing I ever bought was actually Saxon and an AC/DC singles. But not long after, I got Exit Stage Left, and that was it. I was totally hooked, and I wasn't just into playing punk or funk anymore. I was really into like progressing into fusion bass lines and getting into stuff like Brand X and Weather Report, and really getting a little bit more adventurous with bass lines, and that's stayed with me ever since. I mean, but Rush was the most inspirational, but you know, AC/DC, Saxon, Thin Lizzy, they're my real rock influences.
Right then, so what was the bass guitar, your very first bass? Do you still own it as a collectible?
No, it was 40 quid. It was from a company called K, that's KAY, and I think they were a global like brand, but they were catering for beginners. The one that I bought, you know, it was a real basic guitar, but it got me started, and that it really doesn't matter what you start with.
No.
If you look at it in the corner of the bedroom and you just want to play it all the time, then that's it. That's all you need. That's all you need. You don't need the most highly regarded brand name or anything like that. It really doesn't matter what you play.
No, exactly.
You play each other basically. it wants you to play it and you want to play it. And if that's how it feels, then it really doesn't matter what it is. And so, yeah, I had that for probably about a year. But then we would go to music shops and just worship the shop window, like pretty much every night. And every now and then, the music bar, it was called, in Freeman Street, Grimsby, they would get in like different brands and of guitars, but they would also every now and then get a second-hand bass guitar in. And so I would just save up and then take my old bass back to them and say, please, can I have that one?
Yeah. Kind of a little bit like cash converters where you just take something in and swap it, or that kind of
thing.
That
kind of thing. But I really didn't have that much money to spare, so I would just take my bass back to them and say, I want that, and I can pay you like whatever a week, and it would be at the absolute minimum. I don't know what I would pay them a week, but I would get a book, and they would say, okay, you sign here, we sign there, and this is every week you make that payment. You can take that bass with you now. And so I did that like for the next 2 or 3 years. I would use a bass, polish it, take it back, I don't know, 6 months later and say, no, I want that one. And that was really cool though. I mean, not every shop would let you do that. And but it was really encouraging because, that way I could like move up to something that looked a bit more like that one on television, or looked a bit more like that one in that band photo. But it took a while. I can remember actually my first real brand new bass that I got from there was I was probably about 16 years old, 17 years old. So that's around 1983. And it was from a company called Ibanez, and it was a Roadster 2, I think it was called, and it was brand new. And I don't actually think I ever finished paying for it. I would forget to go in and do a week payment or something like that. And I've got a real skill at that kind of thing. And it's funny. About 3 years later, I ended up joining Saxon. 4 or 5 years later, and I ended up swapping with Paul Quinn, one of the guitarists from Saxon. He loves playing bass, and he didn't have a bass at that time, so he could see that I was really into playing 6-string, just riffing, real basic stuff. But I didn't have a 6-string, and he didn't have a 4-string, so he's got my first ever paid for bass guitar still now, and I've got one of his Fender Strat bass guitars, and the body is one of the ones that he used to spin round.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, and it's got a Fernandez neck on it, and it's really cool and everything. But yeah, so Paul's got my first paid for bass, and I've got one of his cool old Strats from the 80s,
So your first band that you actually joined, professional band, who was it? Was it Fastway, or was it something before that?
I was in a band called Dan Leno, and that was based at the studio that I ended up working as a session bassist. And that was all around 1984 while I was 18, 19. They were called Dan Leno. The singer Keith Newby was from Grimsby. The guitarist used to be in a band called The Motors. His name was called Pete Bramall. And we didn't tour all over or anything. We didn't really record. I mean, we were based in a studio and we did record, but we never got a record deal. Basically, the guitarist, Peter, he'd been in the record business for quite a long time. He'd been professional, he'd toured, he'd recorded, and he was more interested in just playing, going out and doing some clubs and pubs and maybe a university here and there. Some covers, mostly our own stuff, and then I don't know, after a year or two of that kind of thing, by the time I was yeah, 18, 19, I got pretty much regular at being a session bassist at the studio. It's called the Chapel Studio in Lincolnshire.
Yeah, I've heard that studio.
And yeah, Saxon used to use that place for doing demos and rehearsing. And so I would bump into the band every now and then. And I would make cups of tea and stuff like that. But yeah, I was just hanging around, really privileged to be hanging around in a studio, really cool studio, and being in this like professional recording environment from fairly young age. And yeah, Fastway came through that studio. It was the lineup where Eddie Clark was obviously on guitar, but the singer was not the original singer. This guy was called Lee Hart, and it was basically Lee and Eddie, and guitarist who was helping to produce the album was a guy called Christopher O'Shaughnessy, and the drummer on this album was called On Target, and it was basically my introduction to Eddie. And I think it was 1986 or 1987. And yeah, it was called On Target. And I was around at the studio, and my friend who was the house engineer of the studio called Matthew Kemp, he called me and said there's Fastway in the studio. They've got a bass guitarist, but he's not going to do all of the bass tracks. You should come over and check out the stuff, and maybe you can do something, which was really cool. You know, it was like an invitation to maybe do a session with a band, Fastway. And so I went, and the guy from Whitesnake, a guy called Neil Murray, he was engaged to do the bass for the album, and we were both there in the living room. I can remember sitting with Neil. And I can't remember. I got busy. I probably went out running or something like that, or practicing or whatever. But Neil went in to do his bass, and he was basically just there for one day. Just play through each track. He knew the tracks. He'd learnt them and stuff. And when it came to the next day, the guys had checked his tracks, and they only kept one of Neil's, you know, from like 11 songs, they kept one of what Neil did, and the rest of it I did, and they kept, I don't know, 6 or 7 of my bass tracks, and the other 3 were either keyboard bass or Chris played the bass himself, the guitar player.
Well, I mean,
so that was a big deal for me, you know. A well-known bass player coming in, supposed to be doing the bass, but they only kept one of his tracks, and they kept 6 of mine. So, and you know, Eddie was really cool. A lot of the time, he'd either done his guitar work or he wasn't busy that day. So Eddie and I would just go down the pub, or go bowling, or golf, or just whack golf balls across the valley or something like that. And yeah, so that was 1987. That was my first time I ever got in touch with Fastway and Eddie Clark, and it was hilarious, actually. A lot of drinking, a lot of just having fun, and the record sounded great. You know, if you like that kind of thing, it's more like pop rock than the original, like Fastway. But you know, for me, it was like a stepping stone into rock recording. And not long after that, Saxon were in the studio, and they were doing demos and listening to some demos and needing some help with that stuff. And I got a call for that because they just fired their drummer and bass player from the Destiny album and tour, and so they didn't have a bass player or drummer, and so they got Nigel Gluckler back in. Nigel had been out for a couple of years. And they got Nigel in, and I got a call to come and stand in and do the bass for those 2 days. And after that, Biff asked me if I would like to do the next studio album. So
how did you feel about that? How did you feel about that? You must have been thinking, "Oh my God, it's a dream come true."
Well, the good thing is I'd already worked in that studio. I'd already had an audition. The first band that I joined, like I told you, was Dan Leno. Pro band. And the thing is, that was based in a recording studio, and I was 18. And from playing in your mate's front room, pretending that you're in, I don't know, just pure fantasy.
I think we've all done that, Nibbs. I think we've all done that.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. From doing what most people do, fantasy world, but with instruments, and then getting a call and going to an audition in a studio with professional musicians and being told you're in the band, after 20 minutes or something like that. That was a real big deal, but that had already happened 4 years before I joined Saxon. So, and it was the same studio where Biff said to me, "Would you like to join the band?" So I'd already been through this audition into professional recording in studios. I was really lucky, because I'd already been kind of acclimatized into pro music environment, and I'd met the band Saxon a few times because they used to use the studio. And when I got the call to do this work that they were doing in the studio, and I did it quickly, they were expecting to be there 2 or 3, 4 days, and we got it done in basically half the time. And I think Biff was impressed with that, and he just needed a bass player to help with the next studio album. But he didn't have to ask me, He could have just left it open and got my number or something like that. But he asked me straight away, "Do you want to do the next studio album?" And that was November '88. And
was that for the Solid Ball of Rock album? Was that your first?
Well,
album?
that was the album that he was talking about. Yeah, we didn't know what it was going to be called, and it actually didn't come out until 1990. So this was November '88. When we got into '89, we started doing demo sessions in Boston, Lincolnshire, and then we did a few gigs. Buckley, Tivoli, my first ever gig with Saxon, and then I don't know, Reading Rivermead or something like that, some sport hall. They were my first 2 shows with Saxon. During that time, we were doing writing, demos and stuff like that. Me nicking Paul's guitar and trying my best to come up with rock riffs, and it was great fun. And by the time we got to winter '89, I realised I'm pretty much in the band. This is crazy. And it was cool though, because I would speak with Biff and say, it's a bit freaky. I've got your singles and shit, and now I'm working with you. It's a bit crazy, but we would speak about it, and it wasn't I think he could tell, this is a fan in the band.
Yeah.
And so, but it wasn't a big deal, and we would talk about it. And by the time it came to winter, I've been in the band a year. Winter '89, we went and did a tour in Germany with Christmas Metal Meeting.
Was that with Man of War and Fate's Warning?
It was. Sabbat.
Oh yeah, Andy Snape's old band.
Yeah, Lizzie Borden and Fate's Warning, Manowar. And pretty much every night when we went on stage, for me it was fantastic. We'd get up there with the bass that I'd only bought 2 years before, still hadn't paid for. And and we went on stage after Lizzie Borden's Sabbat Fate's Warning, and we were special guests before Manowar, and Saxon hadn't been in Germany for about 3 years, I think. 2 years, something like that. And so this was a big deal with this new kid as well. And Nigel Glockler back in the band. So it was a pretty dynamic presence that we had. and we went up and ripped it every night, and the crowd went absolutely crazy, and we certainly gave Manowar a good run for their money on those dates. I think we only did about 10 dates or something like that, but that was a big deal for me. And then not long after, about 6 months later, Solid Ball of Rock, we'd recorded it and released it, and that got great press. It's funny. Saxon had lost that early mid-80s momentum, and it kind of all changed, around Innocence and Destiny. It was a different band by that time, and you could see that they were being urged towards American or the MTV market, make it work for MTV, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And
they made it work, but it wasn't what most of the Saxon fan base wanted, that's for sure. Yeah. And Saxon, we sort of went back more to traditional Saxon in the Solid Ball of Rock. And then from then on, we were sort of navigating towards, how do you get through the 90s?
Yeah.
Not the easiest thing.
I was going to say to you, Nibbs, because the band have always been a heavy band anyway, even from the early days, as we all know. But when I first heard Dogs of War album, I could see a progression in some European metal bands shining through in your music. Do you kind of agree? Because I could hear bands like Gravedigger, Primal Fear, that's sort of like the German power metal coming into the Saxon vibe. Do you agree with me on that?
I don't know about the Dogs of War album. I mean, there was...
you can see you were getting heavier on that album onwards.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, especially the intro track, the title track, Dogs of War. That was deliberately aimed at more of a heavy metal vibe. I mean, if you listen, the album's got quite diverse tracks on it that do not point at heavy metal. If you put them back to back, there's a couple of tracks there's one track called Don't Worry, and there's Dogs of War. You put them against each other and it's wow, are they on the same album? So we were all capable of coming up with the goods, but focusing them all in one album.
Yeah,
that was still not. We hadn't mastered what Saxon were absolutely well known for in the early mid 80s. It was still a little bit off the rails. The goods were there, but we weren't putting them all on the same album, and so you get maybe 5 tracks that were totally focused, and then you get 5 maybe diverse tracks that were good in their own right, but not on the same wavelength as the what you intend.
I mean, you got Unleash the Beast, you could see the heaviness in that, and then when you released Metalhead, for me that was whoa, this is it, this is the fucking album.
I think that's the way to look at it. If you think Dogs of War, Unleash the Beast, Metalhead, you can see they're trying to get rid of the lighter stuff, focus on heavier stuff, and then after that it was just refining it. What is heavy for a Saxon album? What's heavy for one band doesn't mean it's heavy for Saxon. I mean, I've found that in the last 4 albums of stuff that I've been one of the main composers on the later stuff. I've found that you can go. I like to blend old Saxon and be a little bit more progressive, and I've found that it's pretty easy to go the wrong way. It can sound great, but after a year or two, you think sounds like you're pretending to be somebody else. But around those albums, Dogs of War, Unleash the Beast, Metalhead, you could tell they're trying to get rid of the lightweight stuff and they're focusing on the heavier stuff. Yeah.